Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of our Safety Connects webinar series. My name is Anna Milan, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Safetica. And today I am joined by Marek Jan, Safetica Channel Account Manager for Great Western Europe. So, first, let's delve into the world of regulations that are reshaping how our businesses operate today. Um, I think in the previous webinar series, I've briefly mentioned that, with the continuous expansion of threats and risks, compliance practices are expected to grow or to go even further in ensuring the safety of sensitive data. What does this mean? It means that we can expect more compliance standards to emerge. And in fact, Gartner predicts that by 2024, 75, and that's already next year, 75% of the global population will have its personal data covered under privacy regulations. We can also expect current compliance standards to become stricter with time to ensure even better data protection. And you will see that in an upcoming regulation called NIS2, which we'll touch base later on. Regulations are now essential to ensure that organizations follow the same set of standards when protecting, sharing, collecting, and storing data. And in this session, we'll briefly talk about GDPR and, as I've mentioned, the new Cybersecurity Directive, NIS2. So, moving on, one regulation I think that needs no further introduction is GDPR. So, it was an EU led legislation that revolutionized business practices not only in Europe but also globally. Companies around the world had to reassess their operations to align with GDPR's principles. And needless to say, GDPR brought data privacy, security, and user rights to the forefront. And in just a few short years of implementation, it has dramatically reshaped how companies manage and handle user data. However, there's a new compliance standard that may have just as large an impact as GDPR. And yet the discussion around it has been minimal. And so we want to touch base and we wanted to spread awareness around this new cybersecurity directive. And it's also a EU based directive or a compliance standard called NIS2 Directive. And it impacts a much wider scope of companies compared to the original NIS directive. So while GDPR primarily addressed user data privacy and security, NIS2 seeks to elevate privacy and security standards for entire companies and organizations. And it's an important development that deserves our attention, and we'll explore it further in this webinar and on the next slide. So get ready. NIS2 is coming. Well, it's coming in the fall of 2024. And while we still have time to do that, it's important for organizations to start preparing sooner than later, as we always say. So who is affected by NIS2 or the NIS2 directive? As mentioned, because it is an EU directive, it applies to all companies based within an EU member state. What's new in NIS2 is that entities that fall under this framework are divided into two categories. So one is essential and the other is important entities. And the main difference here is that in the essential group, a disruption of services would be expected to have more serious consequences for the country's economy or even society as a whole. So, if you think of it from a sector's point of view, sectors such as healthcare, energy, transportation are included in this category. And then, what does this mean for businesses? So, as I've mentioned, NIS2 is much more stricter and it has much, broader implementation standards. It's really a framework that is set out to strengthen security requirements. So, among other things, NIS2 requires companies to, one, manage risks within their network and information systems, to implement a minimum standard of security measures that address supply chain security, vulnerability management, cybersecurity risk management, and many more. And the one thing that I would like to highlight here is really adhere to specific incident response window. And specifically, NIS2 asks companies to adhere to a response window that can range from 24 hours to 74 hours after becoming aware of the incident, and making sure that these organizations issue a final report 1 month after the incident notification is submitted. And we are here today because, of course, with this growing number or the tightening privacy regulations, Safetica is here, of course, to help achieve compliance. And Safetica can help with the following areas. So, first, around security audit. So, with Safetica, you can quickly run a data audit and identify what types of data are used in your organization. We provide safety data overview, meaning we give information about data flows and sensitive data storage, and help you really monitor user operations and provide you with reports on how data is processed. In the same way, with Safetica, you can easily classify data, so data that are sensitive, data that are confidential, data that you need to protect within your organization. So you can apply data loss prevention policies and enforce desired behaviors when users interact or use with these sensitive information. And last but not the least, which I've mentioned earlier, it's really about incident risk response and knowing when these data breaches or data leaks and even potential risks around your data are happening. So, in case of these security incidents, Safetica's real-time email alert system notifies the appropriate personnel within their company, and it provides details so you can take follow-up actions and ultimately minimize the impact of leakage. So, to show us Safetica in action, I turn you over to Marek.
Okay, thank you so much, Anna. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you currently are located. In the following 15 to 20 minutes, I would like to show you Safetica Next high-level demonstration and to basically touch what Anna mentioned during the presentation. That means how you can comply with GDPR and NIS2 thanks to our Safetica Next product. So for those of you who are not yet familiar with Safety Connect, Safety Connect is a software as a service, cloud-based data loss prevention and protection solution. It is hosted in secure Microsoft Azure environment. And what Safety Next can do for you is that it helps you to identify, to classify, and to protect your sensitive data. In general, Safetica Next is meant to be a good fit for rather small and mid-sized businesses, and mainly due to the fact that it comes with hundreds of predefined templates, which helps you to protect your sensitive data from the very first second. Now, from the high-level perspective, you may see that the environment itself is divided into analyze and manage section. And what Safetica Next do is that it actually scan or go through the content of the files. It search for sensitive data in it, and once it detects it, it helps you to either lock and block, or notify the user once they try to transfer such sensitive content outside of the safe perimeter. In this particular case, it's the endpoint environment. So to guide you through Safety Car Next, you are welcomed in here by the central dashboard. As you may see, you have some numbers in here. You have high-risk events, risky activities, high-risk users. Then you have some recommended destinations and devices with issues. But what is the most important part of this is those files in time. It shows you when some sensitive content went transferred. And if you click on more details, and as I will show you later on, it will show you more details about who uh, has done such activity, what was the action which took place, and what were the files which were attempted to be transferred. You can investigate such information in some selected timeframes. You can investigate data from today, last 7 days, last 30 days, or some, let's say, selected time frame in here. So let's go with the last 30 days. And to show you what you can analyze and do with Safety Next, let me guide you through the main menu. In here, in the environmental setting, you can see some best practices, tips and tricks, how you can increase the risk or the protection of your sensitive data. And as Anna mentioned during the presentation, you can also download this one-time report, which helps you to audit and get comprehensive overview of all the security incidents which happened in some selected time frame. To continue with the demonstration, let's move to the data security section. And in here, you can see an overview of all the users who caused some of the sensitive incidents, let's say. You can see all the files which were transferred. And in the event overview, you may see more details. So let's have a look into it. For example, this particular incident that happened on 1st of September, it was copying, I believe, of some sensitive transfers, of some sensitive files. And if we click on more details, we can see that those four users were involved in this particular incident. And in event overview, you can see more details. As I mentioned at the very beginning, Safetica NXT enables you to notify the users, log those activities related with some sensitive content transfer, and block those activities at all. Let's have a look on this particular incident. For example, you can see that the action which took place in here is that user was notified. And based on those demo data, we see that Eva Bailey, she tried to copy some sensitive content from network path to network path, and this particular incident was notified. That means that user was notified that she attempts to try to transfer some sensitive content, but you can approach also through the notification or blocking action as well. Just to guide you through the rest of the analyze section, you can see in Shadow IT applications and websites which are used on the personal level uh, and also on the company level. So if we go to the data security, uh, and to the applications and websites, we may see that in last 30 days, those are the applications and websites used by the employees of your company. And you can divide or set those activities, these applications and websites as risky or as safe. And depending on that, you can also see if it's a risky applications or websites. You can see the devices who use those particular applications, and you can see also total activity time that they spend on it. You can investigate such activities on both company and personal usage. So it helps you to identify how the employees behave when it comes to the usage of applications and websites. And if they use, let's say, some risky ones, you can sort it out later on. You can set it as risky, or you can basically uh, let those employees know that they shouldn't behave as such. If we move on to the user behavior, and here you can see an overview or list of all the users with Safetica Next on their endpoint. And based on their activities from the last 30 days, you can see that their risk level is either high or low. And for this particular user, who is Carl Mooney, you can see that his risk level is, let's say, rather higher, and it's based on the fact that he caused some incidents which are seen as high risky ones. In more details, you can see that he tries to transfer or do some activities with 104 files, which have some sensitive content in it. And in details, you can also see his total activity time. You can see his regular activity period. That means when he actively uses the endpoint. And throughout this section, you can investigate if he's done some, let's say, incidents outside of his regular working hours, which is something which may, let's say, increase some, let's say, awareness, and it should identify, or it can help you to identify potential insider threat within your company. On top of that, you can also see top 5 activities or applications and websites used by this particular employee. So you may see that Carl Mooney spends quite a long time on Facebook or playing Minecraft, which is potentially not something that you want to see. As such, you can see how the employees behave in the environment. You can also see when and if they transfer some sensitive content, or if they are trying to upload some sensitive content outside of the safe perimeter. And how to set the rules and how to create policies. That's something I will show you right now in the manage section. What Safetica NXT enables you is to divide your environment into three different categories, and it affects, or it's related to the websites, emails, and USBs used by your employees. You can see that once employee uses USB device for the first time, it will appear in here as unsigned, and based on the risk, let's say, that you see in usage of this particular USB device, you can move it to untrusted or safe workspace. Later on, you can include or exclude those USB devices from policies that we will create in a couple of minutes. And this helps you to control, let's say, what devices are used by the employees. And based on their risk level, you can, for example, move some of the webs, emails to untrusted or safe workspaces. For example, to give you some real life scenario, your HR team needs to upload some sensitive content to LinkedIn, for example. So you can move it LinkedIn as safe for HR team in particular. If we go a bit further in the protection, you can create new policies. As I mentioned at the very beginning, Safety Connect comes with hundreds of predefined templates, which enables you to protect your sensitive content from the very first second. You can create your own policies by your own. It's very simple and straightforward. You can just click on Add Policy, name it, for example, name it GDPR. Then you can select risk level. Let's stay with high risk level. You can select an action which should take place. As I mentioned, you can select from block, notify, or log approach. So it has some, let's say, educational purposes as well. So you can show your employees how they should handle sensitive content. But in this particular case, let's go with the blocking action. Then you can select data that you want to include in this particular policy. If we keep it as it is, it will cover all of those, but you can see that the files category that you can include contains of text files, audio files, video files, and many others. Data classification, it's something what makes Safetica Next unique. As I mentioned, you don't need to define anything from your end, as Safetica Next has hundreds of those, let's say, data sensitive data categories in it, and it includes person related sensitive data information, healthcare related, financial related, and also GDPR. As it is the main topic of our webinar, let's go with the GDPR data classification, which should take place. And then you select destinations you want to protect. You can go with USB, RDP, Google Drive, OneDrive, Box, and either instant messaging, printer, screenshot, and many others. So what it gives you in a real life scenario once more is that all the GDPR rated sensitive data and their transfer will be blocked. A transfer to, for example, instant messaging channels will be blocked. And as such, you can apply this policy to company as a whole, or you can apply it on some selected user group, which we will create at the very end of this presentation. So let's apply this policy to sales and finance department. As such, new policy is created. You can later on switch it on or off, and you can edit it as well according to your needs. And you can add more, for example, channels, files that you want to protect and such. Now let's move on to the data classification. Safetica Next has those data classifications which are related to some personal sensitive data, healthcare related data, but also a lot of regulations as well. In here you can see that we do have CCPA, GDPR, HIPAA related sensitive data, either POPIA, PIPEDA, and many others which are regionally related. If we have a look in more details into the GDPR data classification category, we can see that it contains of bank account numbers, birth numbers, driving license numbers, and many of such from all, let's say, European Union states. If you want to create your own rule to, let's say, extend the protection, you can once more name that particular rule. You can select if you want to use our predefined algorithm, which enables you to use also the data classifications or data categories used in other data categories. Or you can go with a keyword or regular expression. Keyword enables you to protect the sensitive files which has some GDPR in it as a keyword, or you can go with a regular expression. We do have, let's say, quite nicely described how you can create new data classification and categories in our knowledge base as well. But for these purposes, let's stick with the keyword GDPR. If you save it, so all sensitive files with GDPR in it will be uh, included in this data classification category. And on top of that, you can also select them from our library, which is quite wide. And you can select some of, let's say, country-specific sensitive data as birth numbers, reference code numbers, and many others. Later on, you can decide if you want to have this data classification switched on or off, and you can also adapt it later on, or you can create your own data classification category by your own from the very beginning. Except data classification, what we have in Safety Connect is also OCR, which enables you to scan through images, photos, scan documents, and search for sensitive content in it. And at the same time, you can extend file types. We do have quite wide spectrum of such file types already involved or included in the product, but you can add your own if you wish to do so. Last section of the manage part of the menu is devices. It gives you a nice overview of all the devices with installed Safetica on them, and it shows you Safetica status. You can use this part of the product to troubleshoot, delete some of the devices with installed Safetica, or to, let's say, troubleshoot or uninstall Safetica at all. Safetica Next is, let's say, created for Microsoft for Windows and macOS operating system. So it is fully protecting all sensitive data stored on devices with those operating system. Last but not least, let's have a look into the settings. In here, you can see that you can add your colleagues to Safetica Next environment so that they can help you to create and manage new policies. You may also be notified about high risk, medium risk, or low risk events. You can either receive weekly reports, which is something that Anna mentioned in the presentation as well. So you do have a nice understanding and an instant overview of what is happening with the sensitive content within your company. Let's have a look into the users. In here you can see all the users which are using Safetica Next, and you can then later on create new teams. As I shown you during the policy creation, you can apply such policy to particular group, user, or to a company as a whole. So let's name, for example, this one user group sales, and then you can simply add users from the sales department and create a new user group. And then, last but not least, what we have in Safety Connect as well is Azure Active Directory. So you can synchronize it and you can manage the settings and all the users throughout it as well. So that's pretty much it from the high-level perspective of Safety Connect. What it gives you is an option to control, identify, classify, and also protect sensitive data from the very first moment and be compliant with GDPR, NIS2, and many other regulations by, let's say, a couple of minutes. And it is basically a one-click action which enables you to be compliant with those regulations. If you're curious getting more info and details about our product, we'll be really happy to provide you with Safety Next free web trial, which you can register to on our website. And we will also be more than happy to discuss with you all your needs and expectations from your data protection on our demonstration. So feel free to book a demo with us or register for our Safety Next free web trial. And I believe that's pretty much it for today. So I would like to thank you, and I'm looking forward to meet you either on our demonstration or some of our events in the future. Thank you so much and have a good one.